my song, praising my Savior all the day long. This is my story, this is my song, praising my Savior all the day long. Perfect submission, all is at rest. I in my Savior am happy and blessed, watching and waiting, looking above, filled with His goodness, lost in His love. This is my story, this is my song, praising my Savior all the day long. This is my story, this is my song, praising my Savior all the day long.
Okay, can you hear me? I'm not going to be able to run around like I usually do since we have this stationary. Okay, today's topic is going to be meat and dairy requirements. How much do I really need? If any of you were here last night, we talked about children's health issues, and we talked about the 7 issues, and then remember at the very end, we said you're gonna see why this is going to take a little bit more than 5 minutes, but I'm going to definitely try to finish up by 7 o'clock. So what we're going to do, there's a lot of myths and misconceptions about protein in general, about meat and dairy products, so hopefully we can dispel a lot of those. And to get started, let's just invite the Holy Spirit to be with us, okay? Gracious Father, we praise you, we glorify your name. We thank you so much for all of your blessings. Thank you for this Sabbath season, this opportunity to pull away from our day-to-day activities and to reconnect with one another, most of all be reconnected and refreshed through you. We pray that as we spend this precious time together, you guide and direct my heart, my mind, and my spirit so I proceed in a way that's pleasing in your sight, brings honor and glory to your name, so that those things that I plan to talk about that's not consistent with your will, I pray that you overrule. And if there's someone out there that needs to hear something that I didn't plan to speak about, I pray that you ask me to emphasize it, because in the final analysis, we want your will to be done, that this time that we spend together is a blessing and not a curse, and if any good comes out of it, all of the honor and glory goes to you. This is my prayer in the very precious name of Jesus Christ, our Lord, our Savior, our very best friend, and the one and only Master Healer. Amen. Okay, meat and dairy requirements. I think a lot of you can identify with this first chart, especially those that are vegetarians. People want to say, well, where's the beef? But really, what are they really saying? It's really not the beef, but everybody has this myth that you have to have meat and or dairy, or even beans for that matter, in order to get your proteins. So let's take a quick look at what the 7 major body requirements are. And if you notice, there's nothing up there that says protein. What you really need is water, carbohydrates. And what is the carbohydrates mainly for? It's really mainly for the oxygen. You get the oxygen from your carbohydrates. And then you got the fatty acids, which is good for the tissues around the central nervous system, etc. Those essential fatty acids. And then it's really the amino acids that are important. And so we're going to clear up a lot of the information and say, what are the real amino acids that you really need, and what is the best place to get them from? And then, of course, you have vitamins, minerals, and enzymes. But that's what all of that manufacturing that's going on, those are the real requirements. So let's take a look and see then, with that, okay, meat and dairy, how much do I really need? Okay, and it comes in all different kinds of ways, and ice cream, milk, cheese, beef. So how much do I really need? That's what we want to talk about today. And protein is very important. It is it means life. Pro is for life. Protein. So it is necessary for normal growth. You can't live without it. It's vital for muscle function. It's vital for hormone synthesis. Vital for the production of enzymes. And you need increased amounts, repair of tissue, for muscle building, for pregnancies and things of that nature. So in certain instances, you actually need more protein. Let's look at the protein requirements. And even here, there's a lot of real misinformation. Okay? If you notice, same body, same human body, same requirement for amino acids, etc. But let's look at this. From an American standpoint, the U.S. dietary guidelines, their formula is some strange formula. It works out to about 37% of your body weight. So that's what I put there. So think of it as about 1/3 of your body weight. So what they say is you need about 50 to 70 grams, which is saying about 150, between 150 and 210 pounds, you need 50 to 70 grams. Okay, that's what the U.S. dietary guidelines are. Now, the same body, same scientists, they go to the same school, but the World Health Organization, now, from a world standpoint, you're going to start to see there's more politics than science in nutrition and a lot of things that we deal with. In the WHO, they basically say you need 20% of your body weight. So same body, same scientists, they say you need about 30 to 40 grams of protein. Okay? Now, the standard American diet is about 25 to 35% of the calories coming from protein. Some 70 to 150 plus grams of protein, so way above the U.S. dietary guidelines. And now you can see that's where the politics come in. So they're basically trying to fit into this concept, not necessarily what's needed. But what is really required, and I'm not going to take you through all of the studies, but I will tell you that many of you might not know, protein was first discovered back in 1830. By a Dutch scientist by the name of Mulder. I had a number of charts in that I'm kind of netting out, but that's when it was first studied. And then there were a number of studies in 1850 and later, scientists like Voigt and a lot of scientists you might not have heard of. They basically came up with 119 grams, which is even above this very high amount here. And I'm coming down here, 5 to 10%. This is how much you really need. But the point is 119 grams. And that kept going until the early 1900s. There was a guy by the name of Chittenden who checked out the study for Voigt. He actually studied European longshoremen, and they were eating about 100 to 200 grams. So he came up with this formula that says about 119 grams. When Chittenden went to check all those people that were in that study, he found out something very interesting. They were all dead. The average lifespan was 39 years. So some interesting things, and then you keep going into the early 1900s, 1945, and then basically by 1988, even the ADA came out with the statement that the vegetarian diet, well, they went through all of these qualifications. A properly designed vegetarian diet provides all of the protein that you need, etc. Some interesting things happening along the way. One of the people who actually listened to the person that challenged the 119 grams, there was a swimming team that was last in the division. And the only thing they changed was their diet. They went from an average of 4,600 calories to 2,300 calories. And the only thing they did was they took out all of the meat and dairy. All of the animal-based protein. They went from last in the division to first in 1 year. So I just wanted to give you that context. So when you look at this is looking awfully pitiful. 10 to 20 grams. And now that 20 grams is if you're pregnant or if you need to be really physically fit, if you're a world-class athlete. So it's kind of interesting. It sounds awfully low, but hang in there with me, okay? 40 to 80 calories. Primarily from plant-based sources, high in the essential proteins. So we'll come back to that. So what are the essential amino acids? You probably know that your body makes up most of the amino acids. It makes up some 12 to 14 of them. You only need 8. What does essential mean? Essential means you have to get it from an outside source. Your body makes up the other 12 to 14 from the carbohydrates you eat. So from the rice and carrots and kale and potatoes and yams, all those carbohydrates, the body makes up most of the amino acids you need. The vast majority. You only need 8 from an outside source. Now, what this chart is saying, here are those 8 amino acids, isoleucine, leucine, all the way to valine. So you see them all, methionine. So those are the 8 essential. What this is showing is even if you had a diet of 100% sweet potato, baked potato, just 100% brown, just those, here is what the recommended amount is. Even if you had 100% of just potato, you easily, up here, now if you could do the heavy hitters, like corn, the big amino acid ones, rolled oats, white beans, asparagus, broccoli. Broccoli is one of my favorite. I was telling somebody, I said, look how far you surpass the recommended amount. Okay, so it's those essential amino acids that you really need to be concerned about, and you can get them all from a plant-based diet. I like this chart because it basically shows, those of us who know the Bible, the first 10 generations of man, their average lifespan was over 900 years. Okay, with the last one being Noah, and then that's when the flood occurred, remember? And right after that, the next 10 generations, it went down to 175, and then shortly after that, by 1000 BC, it went to 70, just like Psalm says. Psalm says we're given 70 years, and if you're fortunate, you get another 10 years, 70 to 80 years, back from 1000 BC. Hasn't changed. And there's some reasons for that, and there's been change more than just in diet, the atmospheric pressure and things of that nature. But the big thing that changed is, remember right after the flood, when was meat introduced into the diet? After the flood. And it was supposed to be temporary, and was supposed to be for a short term because there was no vegetation, because the earth was flooded. So that's why those extra animals were put on there for the short term. But people, that short term is standing a long, long period of time. Okay, when is that short term going to end? So let's look at the protein in the typical Western diet. Remember we said 50 to 70. Now this is the way I used to eat, long time ago. Sausage and eggs and fries and all of that. And then, typical lunch, hamburger. Throw a little bit of lettuce in there, or tomato if you can find it. And then look at that, 185 grams. That's more than double even the recommended amount. So you can see. Now let's look at the vegetarians. Let's look at this paltry, pitiful, typical plant-based diet. 70 grams. A little cereal, maybe a piece of toast, and a little bit of fruit, a salad, soup, veggie soup, and a little light thing for dinner. 70 grams. So you can see, you very easily make their requirements, which we said is way too high. What we said was you only really need about 40 to 80 grams, and you can easily get that in the plant-based diet. Now, what I did was I looked at the way I used to eat. Now, I've basically had this build since I was 18 years old, since I was in high school. I remember on my draft card, back in the old days, for those of you who remember the draft, I was 147 pounds, same height. I'm about 140 to 150 pounds now. But let's look at what I used to eat. This was my typical diet. Bacon, eggs, toast, juice, milk, burger, fries, soda, dessert, meat. And I wanted to gain weight. You see, it didn't work. It still didn't work. Potatoes, salad, bread, butter, snacks. 4,200 calories, 160 grams. Even they say, based on my weight, I needed 50, so I was triple the amount, and I wondered why I had all these issues. I was sick all the time. I had cardiovascular issues, respiratory problems. I had a heart murmur. As a matter of fact, when I took a test at the age of 55, after I made changes, after the age of 40, and after my 40s, I always told them, one of the things I said, I have a heart murmur. They couldn't find it. It disappeared after I changed. See, but these are the things that were contributing to it. And you know, they talk about there's no such thing as a typical 2,000 calorie diet, but I was taking in a lot of calories. And it was just killing me. It was overwhelming my system. Now, let me ask you a question. They say that you are what you eat. How many people believe that? Okay, you're not what you eat. I don't see any broccolis walking around here. I don't see any asparagus. I don't see anybody clucking. I don't see any chickens walking around here. I don't see any lettuce and tomato. You eat that. You're not what you eat. You are what you can assimilate. You are the results of what you eat. You are not what you eat. What you eat determines what happens, but you're not what you eat. You have to go through all that machinery I showed you in the beginning, and there are a lot of factors involved. So I was eating, according to this, I should have been Tarzan. I should have been Mighty Joe Young. I was eating all this, but it wasn't work. I was overwhelming my system, and I was just wearing myself out. So you're not what you eat. You are what you can assimilate, or what your body can use. Now, this is the idea. This is how I eat now. Sometimes I don't even eat this heavy, and I don't need to. Juice, fruit, oatmeal. Basically, in the morning, a lot of times I just have a smoothie and a couple of pieces of toast with almond butter. So this is even on the heavy side. A salad with veggies, brown rice. You notice there's no beans here either. Salad, vegetables, and a lot of times I just have 2 meals, combination of these. Look at that. It's still 51 grams. I'm still way over what I need. If I only need about 40 to 80. See, so I'm easily making my requirements. And of course, if I'm working out hard, etc., or doing some serious competition, I might need more. But you can see how easy it is. All I just need is another spoonful of almond butter, for example, or add a handful of beans. It's very easy to make your requirements, is the point I'm trying to make here. So the point I want to make, it is impossible to have a diet of sufficient calories and not make your protein requirements. You have to make sure you have a sufficient calorie. Remember that chart I showed? If you had a 100% potato diet, even if you had a 100% rice diet, as long as you have sufficient calories, you still have to have your 1,500 to 2,000 calories, but it's almost impossible. And one of the things I like to talk about is this person, Andreas Colling. You probably never heard of him. He was Mr. Universe and Mr. Europe for 3 years in a row. This is in the 1950s. So a lot of you probably haven't heard. He was a 100% fruitarian. All he ate was fruit before, during, and after his training. He had harder, finer cut muscles than all of his meat eating and dairy eating competition. As a matter of fact, his muscles were even stronger and harder than those, because all that fat and all that other kind of things was actually interrupting that. And this is one of the things I like to share with people, those bodybuilders that are looking for protein. Bodybuilder once asked me where I got my protein from. I told him to come take this leaf from me and find out. This guy is a vegetarian, and nobody's going to kick sand in his face. All right? So there's so many ways of getting an excellent source of proteins: nuts, seeds, fruits. The vegetables is where you get a lot of your protein from. See, the vegetables were originally designed for the animals, but then we were given vegetables. Vegetables does a couple of things. We were given the vegetation because we needed the extra sustenance, and we also, that's where you get your healing. You didn't need any medicine before the fall. We were designed to live forever, but the vegetable kingdom is where you get all of your healing herbs. So your unrefined whole grains, legumes. So it's very easy, and there's many sources. So what happens when you have too much protein? For first of all, it creates too much lactic acid, and urea is produced. It's a diuretic. It really works on the kidneys. The protein has to be converted into scatols, indoles, all kinds of nitrogenous waste products, ammonia, etc. And it causes a lot of calcium loss. So basically, you're sacrificing your bones and the calcium stores in your organs when you eat too much protein, because it has to neutralize all that acid in the system. And the best neutralizer, thank you, best neutralizer for acid is what? Alkaline. And the most alkalizing element out there is calcium. And it's all over the body. So if you want to get osteoporosis or osteopenia really early, just eat a lot of protein. Because it not only pulls it out of your bone, your spine, it pulls it out of your organ reserve also. Calcium is the single most important element in the body. Everything needs calcium. It helps to relax the heart. It is the single most, and it regulates all of the other minerals. So when you really start to study the physiology of the body, calcium is and so that's why it goes after that first, because that's the most of it. The body is loaded with it, and every part of the system needs it. The liver, in order to function, needs three things in abundance: water, oxygen, and calcium. Okay, so calcium is very important, and so you're actually sacrificing your calcium when you're on a high meat diet, and then you have compromised functional integrity of the kidney because of all that hard work and all of the stress that you put on it. And you can start to see the heart attack isn't the heart problems aren't so much from the excess fat that they tell you about, it's from the excess protein that's causing all of the stress on the kidneys, and then they don't function right. The nephron tubules get all clogged up, and then you start getting high blood pressure because of all the pressure from the water. And so that's why you have to thin out the water, and they put you on all these diuretics. And unfortunately, the diuretics they put you on, it causes you to lose your potassium. Potassium is needed by the brain, and so you get into this vicious circle when all you have to do is just lower the protein, and then everything else starts getting into balance. And so that is basically what I wanted to cover on the protein. So in terms of meat, how much does the brain need? How much meat does the brain need, from what I told you? Remember yesterday the topic was children's health issues, and we talked about the integrity of the frontal lobe, and we talked about sugar. We saw how sugar. Now meat also has arachidonic acid in it, and that also has a very significant effect on the frontal lobe. So that's what we talked about yesterday. Remember we said today I'll tell you how much meat you need. So what is the answer? How much meat do you need for functional integrity of the frontal lobe? 0 is a pretty good number. You need none. So you're eating it because you like it, not because you need it. So we're talking about need, we're not talking about want. Okay? So let's talk now about the other part of this. Milk. Is it friend or foe? Well, let's see. Not necessarily. Let's see. And, there's a lot of advertising going on with milk. Milk, what a surprise. Real men drink milk. Everybody needs milk. Milk is a natural. Milk is the perfect food. Milk, drink it for all it's worth. So, again, there's brilliant marketing out there, a lot of marketing and advertising. So it's kind of hard to get away from it. And let's take a little bit closer. Milk has something for everybody. Does it really? Let's take a little closer look. Milk is not a natural. Human beings are the only species to drink the milk of another species after weaning, and the only species to drink milk beyond infancy. Nobody else does. Nobody. My favorite author outside the Bible, she says children are allowed to eat flesh meats, spices, butter, cheese, pork, etc., etc. These things do their work of deranging the stomach, exciting the nerves to unnatural action, and enfeebling the intellect. Parents do not realize they are sowing the seed which will bring forth disease and death. Okay, so let's look a little bit closer at milk. Milk produces uric acid like meat, constipates, burdens the liver. See that frontal lobe over there? There's a substance in cheese called tyramine, which confuses the frontal lobe of the brain. So we wonder why our kids, they got the Frosted Flakes. We talked about sugar, remember? how addictive that is and the effect that it has. And then they pour the milk on it, and you're wondering why they're basket cases by the time they get to school. See, so it has a major effect on the frontal lobe and all of these other issues. Let me ask you a question. Which do you think is worse? Anybody who's seen on my hierarchy of nutrients knows the answer to this. Puts a higher burden on the system, meat or milk? Boy, you guys have got it. Dairy products are worse. Dairy. Okay. And I'll show you an interesting chart soon. I have it. Let's look at milk comparisons. Well, I want to show you something. Here's human, and this is a percentage of mother's milk is about 87% water, about 7% carbohydrates. About in the beginning, it's about 2.9%, and it's 3.7, 3.8% carbohydrates. So we need carbohydrates first, and then fat. Protein is the lowest amount you need. That 1% is after the first few months. It goes down to 1%. When is the fastest growth in your entire life? First 2 years. First 2 years, what do you think you need? The only food you need is mother's milk. As a matter of fact, for the first 6, 7 years. I know some people I've heard of people, their systems are so compromised that even up to the age of 40, 50, the only thing that they can digest is mother's milk. It's kind of sad being 40 or 50 years and still hanging off your mother's breast, but still. That's how but it's a very easy food to eat. It's mostly water, though. And in the fastest growth in your life, only 1% protein is needed. Most of the undeveloped nations, their average amount of time that they're fed breast milk is 4 to 6 years. The United States is 3 months. But 4 to 6 years is normal for the rest of the world. So 1%. Now let's look at other species. It's 3.4, but it's significantly higher. And the point I want to make is, if you're really interested in protein, why don't you go after some rat or rabbit milk? It's much higher in protein. Yeah, rat. Look at rats. It's 8.4. So find a dog or find a rat if you really want the protein, and see if you build up any muscle. You don't see anybody running out. See, it's more industry, it's more politics you find than science involved. So what is one of the single biggest issues with cow's milk? Anybody know here? Okay, see, some of you guys have seen some of my past presentations, so you're cheating a little. Maybe cheat. Maybe. Let's look at the 10-year cat study. Are you familiar with this? This was done by Francis Pottinger back in the 40s, and every time they do this test, you get the same kind of results. 900 cats divided into 2 groups. One group, nothing but raw milk, raw whole milk. Okay, and from the same cow, the second group, nothing but pasteurized milk from the same source. Okay, so same source, so it's not like it was Holstein cows here and different breed. It was the same cow. Okay, so the first generation, the raw milk-fed group thrived, remaining active, healthy, and alert throughout their lives. The pasteurized fed became listless, confused, and highly vulnerable to a host of degenerative ailments like heart disease, kidney failure, respiratory ailments, loss of teeth, brittle bones. Interesting. Supposed to be building strong teeth and bones. Second generation. Raw milk fed remained as healthy as their parents. The pasteurized fed offspring were all born with poor teeth and small, weak bones, indicating a lack of calcium absorption. It's not what you eat, it's what you assimilate. There's more calcium in milk. See, don't get confused about the facts. There's more calcium in milk than there is in kale. But which one can you absorb more of? The most you can absorb out of the milk is 25%. So don't get confused by the facts. You can absorb 100% of the calcium out of vegetables. So that's why it's always good to listen to what God says. Even though he doesn't give any proof text, he doesn't give any science, he doesn't have any double-blind, placebo-based studies. As a matter of fact, he says that if a blind man follows a blind guy, they both fall into a pit. That's what he says. That's what he says about double-blind, placebo-based studies. So now, this is the most interesting thing. about the third generation. The interesting thing about cats, they don't live that long, so you can study multiple generations. Humans, it take a long time. But wait till you see this. We're working on a path of genocide with the milk. The raw milk continues to thrive. Many in the pasteurized fed group were stillborn, while all those that survived were sterile and unable to reproduce, causing the experiment to end since there was no fourth generation. We are fearfully and wonderfully made. But you know, just like, what is it? I think it's Ecclesiastes 8:11. Because an evil work is not immediately punished. I'm kind of paraphrasing. We are inclined to do evil. Man is... So this is what's happening. But the implications of this, and if you look at what's happening, we're getting sicker and sicker, higher and higher degenerative disease. You saw the chart that I showed, that 3% of the people who died in the 1900s, less than 3% died of cancer and cardiovascular disease. Now that is over 70%. So we're devolving, we're not evolving from a diet and lifestyle standpoint. So what is the single biggest issue with cow's milk? Pasteurization. See, at least when you have the whole food, and this is the message I want you to, the thing I want you to get, the whole food have things in there for you to help you to assimilate it. In the whole unpasteurized food, the enzymes in there to help to break down some of these things. Enzymes are destroyed above 100 and 203 degrees. Pasteurized milk is boiled in over 160 degrees. You destroy the enzymes, so there's a double whammy. You might as well eat straight chalk for the value that you're getting out of it. And so that is the single biggest issue. And that's why in the 1900s, what happened after the 1900s? When was Pasteur made? Right at the turn of the century. Then everybody started pasteurizing all over the place. That's why our grandparents, they were living. It's funny, a lot of the clients I get, they say, well, there's genetics. And then I started asking them, well, tell me about, oh, she lived to 102 and she was 90-something. And they're talking about Aunt somebody or other who got chemotherapy and died at 47. But if you really look at the genetics, you know, these are very recent phenomenon. Otherwise, we would be extinct a long time ago if it was all genetics. There's other issues, antibiotics, bovine growth hormone. I was talking to somebody earlier today about girls 9, 10 years old being fully developed. And how is a 9, 10-year-old developed, 11-year-old girl going to be able to deal with a 17-year-old testosterone-crazed teenager? They're not ready for it. And some parts of the country, some areas, they actually are having their cycles. When is the normal age to have your cycle? When are you supposed to have it? 16. What is the average age in the United States? 12, 13. And that's on the good side. But it's supposed to be 16. Very good. And so you got all of these issues and a whole bunch of other issues that come with, in addition to the growth hormones, the sheep offal and a whole bunch of other things, listeria, and most of the cows actually test positive for leukemia. So over 30 years of biomedical research relates dairy products to serious chronic health problems for both children and adults. And there's just a whole host of children's issues. Remember we said yesterday, so here's some of the things that we didn't talk about yesterday, but all of these, this is what I wanted to kind of hold up on. You know, I used to believe, because I went to school like everybody else, and I even say now, if I didn't have a clinical practice, I wouldn't even believe how powerful God's laws of health are. But I want to relate one situation. I had a client, somebody just like it was the husband, the father came, and after the presentation, he said, you know what? What you say makes sense. I'm supposed to, his son had juvenile diabetes, and the doctor, and they had him on this diet, and he was supposed to drink so many glasses of chocolate milk. And he said, I noticed that when I gave him the chocolate milk, the blood sugar would go up into the 400s, 500s. He said, so what you're saying is making sense. And he said, then I'm doing all this insulin, and long story short, every time it was his week to have the kid, the son, it got better. And I said, and I started to change my. I said, you know what? And then I said, wow, this must have been a real problem for you since he was an infant doing all of this. He said, oh, no, it just happened a few months ago. I said, wait a minute. Juvenile diabetes means that you have compromised functional integrity of the pancreas. That the aisles of Langerhans, the beta cells have been destroyed. You can't produce insulin. That's what it means. That's what it means that, it's not adult onset. That means long years of abuse. And then finally, so basically he had early adult onset diabetes. We got rid of that. Now what happened was every time he went to the mother, she fed him out all the milk and everything because she wasn't here, and of course she thought I was crazy. The only reason she came in to see me, they didn't have much money, and so I did a complimentary. She was 26 years old. The only reason she listened to me is because she said it was messing with her, it was interrupting her social life. She couldn't go out on dates and this, that, and the other thing. She was always worried about the sugar. So, you got to get people where they are. And so I said, well, why don't you try this? So I worked with her, and when she did it, the program, and got them off all the dairy and gave them juices and things like that, she noticed, didn't need to give him any insulin at all. He basically was cured. But then she came to me and she said, but she was Spanish, he don't like it though, doctor. I said, well, let me tell you, let me ask you a question. What if he wanted to go out in the middle of the street and play football in heavy training? Oh, no, can't do that. No. I said, you have to be responsible for him. They're not old enough. This is a kind of follow-up to the presentation. Yes, we have to take control. Now, my kids are probably going to hate me and I told them, I said, you're going to hate me up until the time you're about 20, and by the time 30 on, you're going to start liking me a lot. And so I'll take the hit for now. And so, I'm kind of making a point. They don't, I hope they don't. They don't hate. But you got to be tough. You got to take that responsibility. And when she got it, I never saw her again. Because and the point I want to make is a lot of the juvenile diabetes is just oversensitivity to cow's milk and cheese and that whole nine. So a lot of these things, and I just wanted to kind of focus on a lot of this we know about, just a whole host of issues. There's a whole host of all kinds of sensitivities. So let's see, and these are adults as well. Heart attack 6 times greater in milk drinkers, breast, ovarian, prostate, and lung cancer, chronic fatigue, infertility. See, a lot of people, you got to get, especially men. You can scar a man's face. You can kick him in the leg. You mess with his sex drive, and all of a sudden, the ears are like cauliflower. You want to hear whatever you have to say. And most of my clients, they're coming to me, my male clients. Most of my clients, and most women go to doctors and naturopathic doctors. And that's why a lot of women are sick, because they taking their health seriously, but they're not always going to and they're very compliant, but sometimes too compliant with the wrong things. But the men, they come into me and they say, well, they don't care. They'll swallow acid to get the blood pressure right and everything. And then I pull out my little PDR and I said, compromised libido. And their eyes get the dilate. You can see the pupils, they whoop right in front of you. And now they're ready to listen to the rest of the story. Well, do some hawthorn berries and cut back this, that, and the other thing. And there's 2 things for men: sex drive and gout. Boy, they come tip-and-toe in the office. They'll listen to anything you have to say. But all of these different issues, chronic fatigue, etc., digestive issues. See, what you don't know about milk is a whole food all by itself. Did you know that? Anytime you put milk in your body, it curdles. It curdles. And so that's one of the biggest. Remember we talked about food combining real quick? When we talked about how to eat right? When you have milk, remember I said milk doesn't work well with anything? Because when you take in milk, it curdles and wraps around the food, and the digestive enzymes can't get to it and break it down. So it's not what you eat. It's what you assimilate. You can eat all this other good stuff, and then you do this other things to mitigate its potential. Bovine, see, at least 20% of the cows test for either. I saw one figure that said in one study, up to 70% of the cows had either leukemia or BIV, the equivalent to HIV, the bovine equivalent to HIV. So they can either have AIDS or cancer. So how is a disease product supposed to help build strong teeth and bones or anything else? Bone loss, remember we talked about? So there's a one-to-one correlation between between dairy consumption. The United States used to be number 4 in dairy consumption and number 4 in osteoporosis. The Scandinavians used to be number 1. Now the United States is number 1 in dairy consumption, number 1 in osteoporosis. There's a one-to-one correlation. And this is from the Dairy Council there. So, good news is, get calcium from a whole host of places. Almonds, nuts. These I had about 3, 4, 5 charts. I just kind of summarize it just to show you there's just so many opportunities to get your calcium. God knows it was so important for us that he puts it everywhere. It's in all kinds of fruits and vegetables and nuts and seeds and even in see, a lot of people don't realize all herbs are concentrations of nutrients. So things like dandelion, yellow dock, plantain, nettle, which has a whole host of good issues, helps with hair and raspberries and comfrey and red clover. We don't have time to go through. And valerian, which helps you to sleep better, and it's a nerve vine, helps you there. They're all loaded with calcium. So God, he knows what we need. And he would have, with your birth certificate, he would have also signed over a cow if you needed all of that cow's milk. And look at all these good things, nuts and seeds. So this is what I make my own. A lot of times I make my own almond milk. I'll take 4 or 5 almonds, and I can make a quart of milk out of it. And you put a little bit of either organic vanilla in it or maple syrup, and it's nice and sweet. And I make that as the basis of my smoothie. So you can make your own, all kinds of nut and seed milks. You can get rice or grain milk. You can make milk out of brown rice, the leftover brown rice. This is one of my favorite, my ice cream substitute. Basically, I take figs and dates and almonds, and you put it through the champion. You got it, the champion juicer, and that's the crust. You put your frozen fruit in there, banana or strawberry. I did that a few times with my family. They thought I was kidding when I told them. They said it was the best ice cream they ever had. I make an ice cream pie out of it. So you can have fun with it, and so your fruit and pies, etc. So there's a whole lot of different things there. And, we got very good counsel in grains, fruits, vegetables, and nuts are to be found. All the food elements we need. We don't need all of that. And she tells us further that fruits, vegetables, nuts, seeds, and selected grains impart a strength. That gorilla knows that. See, gorillas, sometimes the animals, I think it's Job 12:7. It says, listen to the beasts, and they will teach thee, and the fowls of the air, something like that. So learn from the animals. Endurance, a vigor of intellect that are not afforded by a more complex and stimulating diet. And meat and dairy are the most stimulating foods you can put in your body. The only thing more stimulating than meat and dairy is some of the processed foods. And unfortunately, if you see my hierarchy of nutrients, I might do it again tomorrow, you'll see that some of us unwittingly are in a food category that can be very, very problematic. But let me not get too sidetracked. I'm gonna finish on time, ladies and gentlemen. Does the Bible say anything about meat and dairy? Who said yes? How many people think the Bible has anything to say about meat and dairy? Why are you guys so shy? Anybody read the Bible here? Only 5 people read the Bible? Okay. It doesn't. How many times does the Bible say dairy? 0. Very good. But milk, dairy, and cheese it actually says 3 times. But 51 references to milk, or some, I looked at a lot of different things, about 51. 281 references including God's definition for meat we should eat. Is there a definition for meat in the Bible? Does God have a definition for meat? For the meat that we should eat? Does the Bible say, this is the meat you should eat? Where? Well, who's the first? Raise a hand. Raise a hand. Where? Well, where? Okay, she got the first one. You got it right. Okay. And God said, behold, I have given you every herb bearing seed which is upon the face of the earth, and every tree in the which is the fruit of a tree yielding seed. To you it shall be for meat. Uh-oh. So we had the definition for meat. He told us the meat we should be eating. Now, this is one of my favorite topics, but I don't have 2 hours. That's I kind of those 281, it tells you if you're going to eat it. Now, there's nothing else. It doesn't say, there's not another time when he says this. Maybe 2 or 3. But when he talked about flesh eating, he said, well, you got to make it kosher. You got to make sure there's no fat. You got to take care of the blood. I mean, there's all kinds of things. You don't need anything if you just keep it simple. The farther you stray from God, the smarter you want to be. And the older I get, the Alzheimer's kicking. So I want to be closer and closer to God because I don't have to know anything. If I just listen. What are the 2 most powerful vitamin supplements? B and O. What's the B? What's the O? That's it. Those are my 2 favorite supplements. Now, this one is another one. I had about 7 charts to build up to this, but I'm going to finish on time, ladies and gentlemen. Now, the body temple that God has made in his image holds every one of the cells. There's some, depending on the numbers, it's from 30 to 100 trillion cells. Okay? All of those cells are held together by something called laminin. Okay, the collagenous thing that holds all the cells together. And all chemicals have a shape. You know that's in the shape of a cross? Do you know that? Yep. And basically, that's God's way of telling us it's the shape of his cross so that nothing unholy should ever enter there. That's laminin. I don't have time to give you all. Look it up. It's a scientist, and it just blew his mind. When he saw this, he just jumped up. It was almost like somebody was talking about, I think it was Pastor Skeet, talked about, who's the guy who was on his knees? Who's the guy? Luther. He read it, and he jumped up. He saw this thing that binds, holds everything together. And so there is a biblical or spiritual message here. Colossians 1:15 to 17 says, he is the image of the invisible God, the firstborn of all creation. For by him all things were created, things in the heaven and on earth, visible and invisible, whether thrones or powers or rulers or authorities. All things were created by him and for him. He is before all things, and in him all things hold together. This is powerful stuff. So God takes care of us. He knows what we need, and he's there from the beginning. He created us. He knows what we need. And this is just a powerful spiritual lesson he gives us. I think I was talking to Pastor Skeet, and he says, the more you learn, the more you know about health. I think that's what you're saying. The more you appreciate the Bible. See, I came to Adventism through the health message. And I learned a lot about health. And when I read the Bible now, I jump up and scream. I said, wow, this is deep. And I, you know what? I probably read some of those things before, but I didn't see it as clear because my mind was so far. The clearer your mind is, the better you can even see these connections. Right? Summary: a diet of fruits, vegetables, nuts, seeds, and grains provides the best sources of nutrient requirements. Meat and dairy products contribute to a variety of health conditions. So, I started out with meat and dairy requirements. How much do I really need? 0. So let me finish. Hey, I'm going to finish on time too. Let me finish up. You know, I've studied a lot of different health systems, just about all of them, the macrobiotic, the zone diet, all these different diets. I studied all kinds of philosophies, religions, read the Bible through and through a few things. You know what I found out? And you guys are going to help me with this. I found out there's 4 things that God does not know. This almighty, all-powerful God. Did you know that there's 4 things that God does not know? Do you know what the 4 things that God does not know? Can I tell you? Yes. Okay. 4 things God does not know. And since I'm ending up, I want to end up just sharing this with you. And help me. Tell me if I'm wrong. Because I don't want to be going around saying things that's wrong. God does not know a sin he doesn't hate. God does not know a sin he doesn't love. God doesn't know a sin he won't forgive. And God does not know a better time than right now to come to him, all you who are burdened and heavy laden, and he will give us rest. Happy Sabbath. Thank you for your time and kind attention.
We just listened to. All right. Want to thank Dr. Skeets for coming to present. And tomorrow Dr. Sharp, sorry. And he'll be at the Clinton Center tomorrow at 2 o'clock. He and Pastor Skeets from 2 o'clock to about, where's Bliss? 6 o'clock. To 6 o'clock. All right, so be there.